Welcome back, Commanders, to another episode of Strike Spot. Today, I am joined by Max, who has been working on the new Roguelike game mode. Max, why don't you introduce yourself to everyone at home?
Hey there, I'm Max. I am a technical designer on Marble Strike Force. I've been here for about 4 years working across the board on combat and systems and tooling, and recently I've been working on new game modes.
And speaking of the new game mode, we have not revealed the name yet. I think we all wanted that to be a big reveal. So I think we're going to give it to you, Max. What is the new game mode going to be called?
I'm honored. I am excited to say that the new game mode will take place in the Danger Room, which is super iconic training grounds in the Marvel Universe. And we've been wanting to use it for a while, so I'm pretty happy to bring it into the game now.
Well, I know that a lot of people out there might not know what a roguelike is. You've also probably heard the term roguelite as well from some of our content creators, or just in general. So why don't you explain in kind of quick terms, what is a roguelike and how is it going to work in MSF?
Definitely. Yeah, so roguelike is a genre of games that leverages kind of procedural generation and permadeath in order to create super replayable and rewarding gameplay loops. Roguelite is pretty much the same, it's just a more modern version with some more modern mechanics. In the context of Danger Room, what you are going to be doing is you're going to be going into a procedurally generated dungeon with the goal of beating a final boss. And then along the way, you're going to be presented with a number of decisions that are going to be centered around building up your squad. So you might be presented with the option of adding one of 3 characters from your roster to your squad, or you might see combat modifiers pop up that you can add in, which are similar to Scourges. And the hope is that when you make it to the final boss, you built up your squad to be strong enough to actually defeat it. And if you didn't, then that's where the permadeath comes in. And so you go all the way back to the beginning, start from scratch, clean slate, and you try again. And so we're really encouraging players to think on their feet, try new things, and play with whatever strategy is kind of presented to them on that run.
Very cool. So why are we introducing this mode now?
Definitely, yeah, we wanted to make something like this for a while. And so I think what makes now the perfect time is that we've heard players for the last few months say that they want more and more PvE content. Stuff like Scourges, stuff like Dark Dimensions that traditionally are pretty one-off. And so the goal was to make this very replayable from the get-go. Like, we designed it, and that's why we picked Roguelike, for it to be replayable. And then the other big reason is that we wanted to create kind of a new experience in MSF, a brand new one that flips combat on its head. And so traditional combat, you know what tools you're going to go into it with. Like, you know that what your roster is, and you know what you can take in. And the interesting decisions that you're making are in combat. And we're kind of flipping that on its head by taking a lot of those interesting decisions and important decisions out of combat and up to the meta level, where you're actually going to be building up your squad. And that's kind of the more important thing that you're doing here.
Can you talk a little bit about why we're trying to get it out as quickly as possible and some of the reasons behind that?
Yeah, that's a great question. The reason that we wanted to get it out and into players' hands so fast is because we know that when we put a game mode out, we're going to be iterating on it over the next some number of months or years in some game modes cases. And so we wanted to start that iteration process a lot earlier. This is fully playable as a new game mode. I wouldn't say it's a beta or anything. Like, it's a fun new game mode, and that's kind of what our bar was to actually ship it. But we're going to continue taking player feedback and trying to make it more and more fun throughout the next months, and that's why we're getting it out so early.
So let's kind of get into some of the nitty-gritty with the Danger Room. So Max, walk me through how a normal run of the Danger Room is going to go from start to finish.
Yeah, so you're going to be coming into the game mode, and you're going to start off by selecting a difficulty, and then you're going to click the Start Run button, which is going to generate an entirely new dungeon for you to go through. Every dungeon is going to be pretty unique. And the very first decision that you make is you're going to pick your starting characters. So every run of the event is going to have a list of characters that are associated with that event that you can find in the Danger Room. So we might have an event that you can only find X-Men, and you will be finding Cyclops or Jean Grey or that kind of thing, or that we might have a run of the event, maybe the first run of the event, that you are finding Starjammers or Vigilantes or Thunderbolts. And so that very first decision that you're making is going to be from the full list of characters that are tied to the event, but going onwards, they're going to be randomly pulled from there. So once you pick your starting characters, you then are essentially fighting your way through the dungeon until you get to the final boss. Along the way, you're going to be encountering new types of nodes, not just combats, that let you give you those decisions to kind of build up your squad.
Okay, so you talk about how there are different room types. Can you name those and talk a little bit about each one of what you might be experiencing when you're actually in there?
Definitely, yeah. So visually, this is a node map, like a raid or like a scourge. And so we're all familiar with the combat nodes. This has a few more that it adds to that. So in addition to combat, you have elite combats, which are like combats, but they are trickier. They will have higher power and they'll give you more rewards. And then from the combat and the elite combats, you're earning this mode-specific currency. You can't buy it anywhere. It's all wiped after the run as well, called combat tokens, which then you can spend in shop nodes to recruit new characters to your squad. So in every single shop, you're going to see 3 characters from that list I talked about, or 3 combat modifiers from also a list associated with the event, and you're able to spend the combat tokens to add them to your squad. And then similar to shops, but more of a freebie, are care packages, where you'll just see 3 characters or 3 combat mods that you can choose to add to your squad. You won't know what it is until you get in there. And then we have healing stations, which this is, in Scourge, you aren't allowed to heal in between your matches. This is kind of a new thing that we added that will give you healing currency that you can use throughout the match, because this entire dungeon is a persistent health kind of thing. So all the enemies have persistent health, you have persistent health, so any damage that you take in a previous match will carry on forwards.
So really, there's a lot of strategic choice that you're going to have to make every single time that you're doing one of these runs. So it's really important that as you're going through, especially on some of the higher difficulties, to really be paying attention to what do I need, where are my cooldowns at. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, there should be many decisions, from starting characters that you pick to whether or not you take a combat or a heal or a shop on your next node, or to, like you said, managing your cooldowns on the kind of the more hardcore game level. There's going to be lots of decisions to make outside of combat in this case.
Okay. So are there a specific amount of nodes that you're going to do? How long will the run also normally be?
I would say that we aren't locked into how many nodes there are just yet, but a run, we're shooting for around 30 minutes from start to boss. So you might not make it to the boss every time, so it might not be 30 minutes every time. But if you're making it all the way there, that's what we're shooting for.
What kind of rewards are we looking at? Is it going to be similar to a Scourge, and that there's going to be, milestones, a leaderboard? How is all that going to work?
It is similar to a Scourge in that there are milestones and leaderboards, but the scoring for it is a little different. So, for one, the leaderboards are going to be mostly cosmetic. There might be some global milestones attached to them. That's mostly because this is a very, very replayable mode, and so we didn't want you to have to grind too hard for the new character or anything. And then on the milestone side, we're also changing things up from Scourge, where in Scourge, you can click the highest difficulty and you get points on every single combat that you do. So there's kind of some manipulation that you can do to get all the milestones. In this case, you really only get the milestone points from defeating the final boss. So you pick a difficulty, and if you defeat the final boss at that difficulty, you'll unlock the milestones that accompanies.
Very cool. Well, I think that leads well into the next question. So how accessible will the Danger Room be? I know that we're going to have some difficulties that you already talked about, but for a brand new player, how is that going to work? And what happens if you don't have all the characters for specific teams, since you are using your own roster?
Yeah, we are, for the first game mode in a long time, I think, we are trying to make this accessible to every single player in Marvel Strike Force. So you can pick this up the day before it comes out, and you should hopefully be able to play it on day one, which is pretty neat. And the way we're doing that is, for one, we're going to have the difficulty selection, which is going to span that whole day 1 to end game player power level. And then we are also introducing something brand new for this game mode, and it's only in this game mode, called rental characters, where you normally, when you're adding a character to your squad, it's straight from your roster, similar to Scourge. And in this mode, you're also going to have some number of rental tokens per day that you can spend to rent a character at a set power vector, even if you don't already have them unlocked. So you might have 2 out of the 5 Thunderbolts, and you might see one that you don't have that you want to use, and you'll have a rental token so you can grab that character for that run of the danger. You won't be able to use it on the next run, so it's a per run kind of thing.
And these rental tokens, how do we get them?
Yeah, so you won't be earning them so much as they will just be automatically generating for you. So we'll have a cap of 5, and you'll be getting a total of 5 rentals per day. So if you don't have any of the new Thunderbolts, you could technically rent all 5 of them on a single run per day.
So I want to quickly touch on the procedural generation topic here, because I think I want to just dispel a couple of things that this isn't. Can you explain how the procedural generation works that we're talking about, and how we plan on using it specifically for the Danger Room?
Yeah, definitely. So procedural generation in this case is, for starters, it's not AI related at all. It is pretty similar to what we're doing in Blitz already in the game, where we are looking at what characters players are using in the meta, like what our top board of defense and offense teams are, what our top Crucible defense teams are. And we are kind of taking an amalgamation of those and making a succinct single wave combat with them. So we might take 3 Annihilators because they're popular in all sorts of game modes, and we might take 2 from Starjammers, and we're kind of throwing them onto one team. And so that's what the procedural generation means on the mission side. As far as the system side, we're also procedurally generating the map itself. So the order that you will encounter nodes, what the missions are, what nodes you might see, that's all procedurally generated as well. So it's kind of twofold.
Okay. And we kind of talked about how these procedural generated teams, we're not necessarily going to throw like a Mephisto Scroll Annihilators team at you on node 1. How are we kind of looking at that from the back end on making sure that it's gradually harder as you go versus in your face from moment 1, you have no chance?
Yeah, Roguelike is known to be a little hardcore with the randomness, but some things are a little too hardcore. And so how we're doing that is we're generating a very large number of missions, and then missions designers are actually going through and assigning each one of them a difficulty. And so we are assigning those difficulties, and then as you go throughout the dungeon, you have a chance to get one at a higher and higher and higher difficulties. So you might just be getting the difficulty 1 bucket for the very first node, but when by the time you're at the end, you're getting the higher difficulties.
So a couple final questions here. How often do we plan on the Danger Room appearing in game?
So the hope is to be close to a monthly basis and lean into ages pretty well as well, and then kind of accompany a new team release. And so the goal is for new Danger Rooms to kind of feature the new team that just came out, as well as the team that came out before it, and hopefully be able to create a pretty accessible experience by having both of those teams in there.
Okay. And I think the big thing that everyone wants to know, when will the Danger Room launch?
It's going to be coming out May 22nd, which is fast approaching, I think. So
very fast approaching. And I do want to say that I can confirm today that Max and I will be doing a live playtest on Twitch on May 20th at 11 a.m. Pacific. So you can head to the description if you aren't already following us there and follow us. And we'll be sure to remind you of that stream as it gets closer to the date. Max, I want to leave you with kind of the final thought here. What are you most excited for players to see with the Danger Room?
You know, one thing that RJ told me very early on, he said, Max, put a lot of Easter eggs in there. Our players like Easter eggs, and so I think I'm pretty excited for our players to find all of the different builds that you can beat that final boss with. All of the teams that are in there and all of the friends of the teams are there. There should be a way to the end with them. Some of them might take a little bit more RNG grinding, but I think a lot of the mods and the characters that you'll find, there's some pretty fun ones in there.
Well, I am definitely looking forward to it, and I'm for sure looking forward to the community getting to experience this. I think it's going to be a very fun time. So thank you so much for joining me today, Max. Appreciate your time, appreciate all your effort on this new game mode. And thank you for joining us today for this episode of Strike Spot.